Thank you, Chris. So my name is Florence. I am one of the volunteers here at Central Illinois. I am the VP of Publicity and Sponsorship, and I help run certain events. And I was just really happy to be on point to welcome Lee to Central Illinois once again. He's been a previous speaker years and years ago to our chapter, and I believe in person back when we had in-person events. So that was way before COVID. So today's event is about artificial intelligence and human factors. But before I get into the keynote, please bear with me while I go over a couple announcements, because we have quite a few things going on at Central Illinois. The display. Okay, I'm sorry. So I don't have to recap that. You guys saw it, even though it was kind of small, but I think I was very clear. The main thing is that the PDU, the PDU claim code will be emailed to you after, so you can submit the PDU for yourself, or your chapter leader will follow their normal reporting and take care of it that way. There is a proper Q&A at the end. Please type your questions in the chat. That way you don't forget your questions. But we have carved out the last 10 minutes or so for like a proper Q&A. That way you guys get to ask Lee whatever questions that you have. And I believe you guys were sharing your LinkedIn profiles already, and I offered to basically gather all the profiles and send them out to your chapter leaders. That way we don't miss the connection. So this is basically a quick reminder to jump on our chapter website. We have a member orientation coming up on the 16th. We have a live stream event coming up on the 22nd, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. That's where we will actually be live. We also have Professional Development Day on August 22nd. It's going to be with the PMICs, so PMI-Central Iowa and PMI-Central Indiana, and us. We've been getting together every year to put together a joint PDD. The only difference with prior years is that this year it's a one-day event, which I like, from 7 a.m. to 5:45-ish Central Time. And the early bird is still available. If you guys are interested, you can actually hop on the prodevday.com website and sign up and get that early bird price. We have a new website or a new page for career development, different trainings, partners that we have. So we encourage, especially new members or people who want to look into more certification, to go browse and take a look and see what we have to offer through our training partners. I know there are, one of them is offering a really nice discount for classes. So just make sure you I guess, save the URL and check it out and see what they have to offer if you are on the market for training and certifications. Lastly, if you are interested in being a chapter ambassador, you want to help Central Illinois get out there, get in front of organizations and employers that you know, that you think there might be a good fit, we would love to hear from you. You just have to reach out to me and I will take it from there as far as what's involved, what that program is all about. At this point, we don't have any ambassadors. We're trying to grow that program basically to, my goal was third quarter, but we'll see. I hope I can still make the third quarter goal that I set for myself. So please help me out if you can help as an ambassador. And final slide is that we are on these social media platforms. We have different posts, different reminders out there of all the things that's happening across the chapter and also with other chapters. That's where you can actually catch us. And so follow us, like our page, And stay in touch in between meetings. That way you don't miss anything in between meetings. Okay.
Let me give you just a little bit of background why I'm involved with this particular topic. It seems like this is several thousand I've done this for now because it seems to be a very hot topic. But one of the things that I want to point out to you is, having been around project management for 55 years, I've seen all the hot stuff come through, all the save the day formats come through. Started with earned value, then it went to agile, now it's in AI, and next year it'll be in quantum computing. And so what I try to do is sort of keep ahead of the power curve a little bit. When we were formulating the PMP, one of our big debate points was PDUs. And what we said basically was, we want PDUs to represent the person's way of filling those voids in the body of knowledge that have come after they've been certified. And so that was the intent. And that's why I got so involved with this particular one, because it's so popular. And a lot of people, including me, because I'm older than dirt, I don't know anything about AI. I mean, I didn't have any AI on my exam. And so I try to give people a good context for what they're thinking about with AI. So as I go through this, you'll be thinking about questions for afterwards, and I'll be happy to answer those when we get to the end. So let me start with this slide. This particular slide, I created this slide approximately 30 years ago, and you can see that my point was this: we're going to constantly see new additions into the toolbox that project managers are capable of using. Every year, without any question, every year, new tools show up, new techniques, new like servant leadership. That was real hot for a while. So you get these things that people latch onto them and say, hey, this could really make me be able to do my job a lot more effectively. And so everybody wants to try it. And so I'm trying to represent here that even after, by tomorrow, there'll be some more new tools come out. I can almost guarantee you. But when AI hit the street, some of you might have been there. I wasn't there because I had to have my darn leg amputated, so I missed Atlanta. And so I got a lot of phone calls from Atlanta, from people that were there, wishing I was there, but more likely complaining that, wait a minute, this has gone from a project management topic to AI. Are we now becoming an AI organization? So evidently the emphasis on AI in Atlanta was pretty heavy. So people started to say, gosh, I better get on board with this and figure out what's going on. And that hasn't really slowed down. Pierre Lemon, our CEO president, has really embraced AI. And that's rippled through the organization. So when I look at this and I think about most of these things, the earned value, the critical path schedules, the PERT schedules, those have all come about long time ago. And some of them are still used quite a bit. Some of them are not used at all. And so that's kind of the way it goes. So what I want to do with tonight's presentation is kind of get you thinking about, what are the real applications of AI for a just Joe common project management person like me, and maybe like you? So that's kind of what I wanted to prepare this for. When I premiered it down in Sri Lanka, there were over 350 people tuned in. Had a great program. Just did New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. They had over 300. So the interest is there. That's what I like. There's nothing worse than speaking to an empty room. And so when we get this kind of an attendance, you know it's a very interesting topic. So that's kind of what my toolbox idea is about. All right, change that slide for me, Lawrence,
Awesome.
please. So the first thing I did when I started to prepare for this program back in, I don't know, it was back in, I don't know, March or April, somewhere in there, is I recognize the fact that when we start to think about utilizing new concepts, new techniques, new approaches, we can't forget there are a lot of stakeholders involved in this process. So every time we come up with a new potentially impactful tool or technique, we've got to remember that there's been a lot of groundwork done in the past, that sometimes these new environments change things so drastically that they actually turn out being as big a problem as they do a benefit. So what we have to understand, and these are the three key component of stakeholders, are the customers. I mean, if what we do with AI doesn't add value to the customers, then the first question that comes to my mind is, well, why are we doing that? Why are we doing it? Is it just because it's the newest, greatest, latest thing, or has it really got some potential value? So I think the stakeholder role is a very important one, not just to encourage us to use AI on our projects, but for them to understand what's the real value. That the value topic is another hot topic. I mean, we've had things change where we went from outputs to outcomes, meaning strategic impacts. So those things are constantly moving. So a customer, a client, a sponsor, whatever they're being called at that time, has to understand that they have to be, quote, bought in on what it is we're selling, and that it's going to do some good for them. So we've got the sponsor and the stakeholder sponsor that doesn't really, I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of them don't know a darn thing about AI. All they know is they've been reading a lot about it lately. And so they're asking themselves, what is this going to return to us as sponsors? Well, obviously, what we hope it's going to return is more effective completion of the triple constraint, of the power grid, of the iron triangle, all those names that have come and gone. So we've got to understand that's their point of view. Then we have the internal customers, the executives. These are the ones that are currently seeing AI as a real opportunity to move out on the environment being improved and more effective. I mean, if you look at the data that's out there, this is always stunning to me. When we formulated some real good data keeping for project management, we found that about 72% of the projects that we did in any given year failed. And what we mean by failed is they didn't meet the scope, time, cost. They didn't. That's when we were still looking at outputs instead of outcomes. So we weren't meeting those 72%. Well, that was part of the reason project management caught on. Part of the reason PMI was formulated is, what can we do to improve our performance on executing projects? And now that's become one of our trademarks, is how do we do things that change or impact the world in a positive way? Well, back then we weren't at the world, we were at my project. And so the projects were needing to be looked at in a way that, how can we effectively use all the existing tools and techniques and still add the benefit of the potential of AI to our projects? So the executives are closely watching what the outcome's going to be. I'll tell you before I get to the next point, the new data that I just got from Pierre at a meeting not too long ago was that with all the hoopla over project management, 1.5 million certified project managers, our failure rate now is 71%. So for all the effort and all the work that we've all done, we've increased our efficiency by 1%. Well, that's certainly not adequate by any stretch of the imagination. And so we've got to look at ways we can do that. So this is where the actual project people come into play with AI. A lot of AI people called me very early on said, oh my gosh, now what am I going to do? I've spent all this time and effort getting my PMP certification, and now here comes along AI. Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to have to look for another certification? And the panic was, yes, everybody panicked. You're going to lose your job. Well, let me settle that from my view. By the way, I was one that was a little leery, so I'm going to be honest with you. But the more I've looked into AI, the more I've listened to AI presenters by people that are a heck of a lot smarter than I am, the more I've begun to see this, in fact, could be what bumps that 71% up into the 80s, into the high 80s. Our performance uh, is going to be improved substantially if we utilize the potential of AI. So the project managers, although most of them are now getting over the shell shock of such a new, expansive concept coming into the PMI world, they're now starting to really start to look at, well, how can I make this work? How can I have this add some value? So those stakeholders are the ones that are going to determine whether this is effective or it's not. And PMI has made a huge commitment to this. We've formulated our own chat GPT. We formulated PMI Infinity. We've and loaded that with project management kinds of stuff, not just generic stuff. So we're making PMI's making a big commitment to do this. Even when I first came out with it, I realized I'm not by any stretch of imagination an AI professional. So what I did immediately was go to PMI, ask what classes have you got that I can take to get up to speed, so I feel like I can talk with some level of efficiency about AI. Well, they gave me their 2 AI programs, data landscape and generative AI, and I took those 2 courses, and it just really opened my eyes. It really started to show, wow, this might be as good as people were saying it was. And so those are the stakeholders. You're one of them. If you're going to be a project manager, and it ripples down to the individual contributors as well, because there are certain areas where the individual contributor can capitalize on the AI concept. All right, change that slide for me, Florence.
Awesome.
Now, this is where the panic comes in. First of all, if you look at this data pile, I call this my data mountain slide.
Did it move?
No, it didn't come up. There you go. I call this my data mountain slide. And this was what I had in the back of my mind when AI hit the street. Is it basically all I heard was, we can get more data and we can get it faster. And I thought, oh my gosh, we can't even deal with what we have now. What's more faster going to do for us? So it really became my focus to say, hey, listen, the key to data management in terms of AI is, first of all, knowing what kind of data you're asking for. And then second of all, knowing what data you're going to use. Like, so if I look at that mountain and just use it as an example, out of that mountain, let's say it's 5 feet tall, there might be 1 foot of data that I'm going to capitalize on and use to improve my project management capability. All that data is valuable. We don't create data for the heck of it. It's all valuable, and it has roles to play as we move through time. But what we need to find out is, one of the things I learned early on when I was working for General Electric on a big Clinch River breeder reactor project, is that we had to be a little bit selective about what data we used to try to project or predict a couple of things. One, risk. This is one of the huge benefits of AI, is I can play what if scenario games with AI and look at what are the potential risks, what are the probabilities based on historical information, what are the probabilities of those risks occurring, what has been the impact of those kinds of risks, and then we can start to look at really risk management. Risk management is about minimizing or eliminating risk to the greatest extent possible. Well, the only way we can do that, we old guys like me can do it based on experience. Maybe we've been around so darn long, we've seen it all happen, so we can sort of say, yeah, that won't happen, or yeah, that's a high probability. Well, that's not going to work for new creative project managers. They want data. They want something to substantiate what they're going to be telling the decision makers. Remember, what data does for the project manager is it gives them the kind of decision support information that they are going to be held accountable for by organizational management. If any of you are so naive, now Kevin might be, he's been around a long time. If any of you are so naive that you think you're the decision maker, wake up. You aren't the decision maker, at least very rarely are you. That decision making capacity is retained by someone above you. So when you are making recommendations, or you're making status indications of ahead, behind, projections, and that sort of thing, the outcome of those are not what you make decisions upon. You may make recommendations to the decision maker, but at the end of the day, the decision maker is going to be able to utilize that same AI at maybe a more refined level to give them a little bit more clarity in what their decision should be considering. But it's going to drive out process. If we look at risk, I'm disappointed as one of the creators of the PMP. I'm very disappointed in the number of risk management certified people we have. I think, especially with AI, but even without AI, I think we did. I'm not managing projects anymore, thank goodness. I think we make a lot of mistakes on risk management. We allow risks to occur that have major impacts. We manage risks that could have been overlooked and not used and not worried about. We haven't really had good hard data to project into the future. Everybody knows a model. It's identify the specific risk. What's the probability it's going to occur? What's the impact if it does occur? Those 3 data points need to be thoughtful. We need to really look through what the data is telling us so that we can make these decisions. Now, you should remember most of the real, what I'll call useful project management tools and techniques have come as an outgrowth of the U.S. military. Critical path scheduling came out that way. Earned value came out that way. Work breakdown structure came out that way. And you can go on and on and on, because they were dealing with massive amounts of money, very tight schedules. And so they tried to create methods or techniques that would allow them to do their job more quickly. So we've had that available to us, but at some point you reach the point of no return when the data, you just don't have enough data to project what the future is going to look like, to base your decisions upon. So what I try to get people to do is think through, let's just take a work breakdown structure, for example. Think through a work package and say to yourself, what could go wrong with this work package? And then once you identify what goes wrong, and maybe it's from history, maybe it's from real world experience, then you say, well, what's the probability of its occurrence? And then if it did occur in those instances, what was the impact? Then we've got to move to, how do you manage it? See, we haven't managed anything yet. We've just identified it and quantified it. Now we got to manage it. So we can start to use AI as a projector of impacts, and then determining, how do we minimize those impacts? Do we accept? Do we avoid? Do we mitigate? Transfer is not really an option in most cases, but you really look at, what can I do as a project manager? Well, the number of risk management professionals certified is extremely, extremely low. The second one that I'm a little disappointed in is scheduling professional. if you want to step back, now I know some of you people aren't old enough to even know this, probably weren't even alive when we started it, is the fact that project management really started as a scheduling tool. It was Harvard Project Manager was the very first, and it was a simple linear timeline schedule. Well, we recognized that's not giving us all the data, so we created critical path scheduling. Now we know we can define which activities have some slack or float and which don't have. And by using AI to manipulate that schedule, I can quickly determine when there would be a critical path change where I'm all of a sudden I'm managing the wrong path. What used to be the critical path has now morphed into a secondary path, and the critical path moved somewhere else. Well, without AI, very difficult to do. And that's one of the reasons we don't see, when I go in and ask an organization, you are using critical path scheduling? Oh, absolutely. That's one of our best tools. I said, well, can I see it? So they bring me in their critical path schedule. It's funny. It looks like a timeline. It looks basically like a linear timeline. I said, well, where's the critical path? And basically, this is a true story. One guy said, it's in there. Well, I know it's in there, but if I don't know where it is, how do I manage it? Well, again, with AI now, I think you're going to see a lot more of these complicated schedules be entered into a critical path scheduling component. One of the guys that's supporting us big time, he was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, a couple of weeks ago, and I cautioned him about the guy, but let me tell you, he works for whoever acquired P6, Oracle. He works for Oracle, and his line of product for Oracle is their multiple P6 planning and scheduling product. And he was a speaker in Riyadh, and he made it sound like all you need is all you really need is Oracle, and we'll be able to take care of all the rest of that. And he went on for a long time. In fact, he might be on. You know, he went on for a long time, and and so when it was done, I met with the head guy from Saudi Arabia, Bader Bouched, and our guy, a guy named Ben Breen, who's working on construction projects. And I just basically said, just be careful. Because if you're not careful, someone like him with the enthusiasm, with the tool, could literally take over the whole problem. They could literally move in, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know is everything's about Oracle. Now, Oracle is just like AI. It's a good product. It does a good job, but it doesn't do all the jobs. It does the scheduling job, and it does that very well. I've tried to use P6 when I was working for a military contractor, and I'll tell you what, the learning curve was vertical. You had to be practically a genius to use this. It's so complex. So it can do it, but do you want to hand your whole program over to an Oracle subcomponent? Probably not. So that's where the mount data comes from. If I turn Oracle loose,
Hey, Lee, you muted yourself, sir.
Yeah.
you got to decide for yourself now. You got two mountains of data. You got to decide which data is useful, which data adds value, and which data is just there because we can produce mountains of data. So that responsibility, guess what stakeholder that falls to? You, the project manager. You have to decide, what do you want to measure? What do you want to keep track of that you can use in measuring progress, in measuring future programs, earn value? I just wrote an article that said that AI has given new life to earned value. When earned value came in the 60s, it was the best thing going. The government embraced it, started to roll it down to all its contractors. Everybody was excited about it, but it turns out there was so much data that manual manipulation of the data was inordinately too long. That was one of my roles at GE, was to consolidate data, report status, and then project the future. Well, on a 1 month of data, it'd take me a week to do all that. So we're losing 1 week in the decision-making process just from manipulating data. Well, with AI, I did a little test, wasn't too scientific, but I did a little test, and I was able to do basically the same amount of consolidation and reporting in less than 4 hours. So it went from 1 week to less than 4 hours. That's a use of AI. If you tell AI what kind of data you want it to collect, and you create a work breakdown structure that has IDs associated with each component, you can begin to build a network of information that's going to tell you exactly what you want to know, because it's going to reach in there and pull out the right information. That's the benefit of AI. Now, I'll tell you, I was a keynote speaker in Rochester, New York, and they brought, I wasn't the keynote, I was a keynote. So they brought in the keynote, who was an AI professor. This guy's a professor, okay? And he's got like 7 books on AI. And he got up and he had an hour, took an hour and 45 minutes, had an hour, and he put on a slideshow that basically showed how you could take AI and create all kinds of out there graphics, all kinds of individual graphics that have no relevance to project management whatsoever, but you could make them and they're pretty, they had nice colors, and that AI can work for that guy too. I mean, he's making money doing something, but it isn't project management. And so I think it's important to understand that you have to do that. Now, I was doing some work for Rush Hospitals in Cleveland, and they wanted to introduce me to their AI developed virtual brain tumor operation equipment. And I thought, well, what do you mean? You mean I'm going to look in some guy? No, it's all virtual reality. So they put the headpiece on me and had me take a pituitary tumor out of a guy's brain. Damn, I couldn't believe it. I was overwhelmed. They said they use that in training their new surgeons, so they don't have to operate on people's brains and go, oh gosh, I didn't mean to do that. So now they got the VR. But for project management, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to operate on a guy's pituitary tumor. I'm pretty sure. And so you can start to see that it kind of falls apart in terms of utilization. So you've got the kind of the esoteric, fancy, artsy fartsy kind of stuff, and then you got the project management kind of stuff, and then right in the middle of that is Chat GPT. And so again, I wasn't a big fan of Chat GPT, but I've got a guy that works at Bank of America who's been training me, believe it or not, on how to really utilize beneficially Chat GPT. And what I've found is the capability of the system. It's up to Chat GPT 4 now. It's unbelievable, and it's really cheap. It's unbelievable. And basically what I'm finding is all you really have to know how to do to capitalize on that is to be able to write the prompts effectively. So write the prompt that the Chat GPT knows what you're looking for, and it's unbelievable. I've had it create an entire work breakdown structure with bulletized subsets in less than 20 minutes. For a multi-million-dollar project. Now, is that saving project management? Yeah. You know how long it takes to develop a plan like that? Weeks. So when you get that, then of course you have to go through and confirm that the data makes sense. It's not always accurate. They're not saying just pick it up and use it. That's why all the professors are starting to catch people using Chat GPT for their thesis, because they just take them right out of there and put them in. Well, they've got tools now that can detect GPT developed tools. for theses. So you've got to always look at it from the standpoint of, does it have enough information to make these kind of claims? And if it doesn't, then you've got some more work to do. But you're going to be way ahead of the game when you do that. So you got AI and all of its little infancy forms, and there's Chat GPT isn't the only one out there. There's quite a few. Then you've got the artsy fartsy kind of stuff, the classical artist work essentially, and then you got the work that we as project managers really need to make sure that we can confirm we're not just going to deliver the project on time, on scope, on schedule. We're going to deliver what the project was intended to provide as an input to the achievement of the strategy of the organization. That's never been done before. That's not something that we've been doing for, except maybe the last couple of years we've talked about it, but now it's the way of the world. We're not measuring outputs, we're measuring outcomes. And so those are the things that you have to remember. If you think, I guess I should be honest with you, if you think Chat GPT or any AI product is going to make your job easier, wake up. It's not going to make your job easier. It may make your job more efficient. It may make you less iterations, but it's not going to make it easy. The project manager, if they find a way to pay the project manager, and all I got to do is get a project done, heck, I'm on board for that. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of people involved. There's teams of people involved, and they've all got to anticipate and implement the data that's being used in this AI world that we deal in. I did mess around a little bit with the AI loaded Chat GPT for PMI, and it's nice because now I don't have to filter through all the non-project management information. I can get directly out of the PMI product the kinds of information that are going to be most valuable to me. All right, let's go for another slide here, Florence. What do you think?
Okay.
All right, this is for the people who I think we used to call them when I was a kid. We used to call them Chicken Little, where the sky's falling. Oh my God, the sky's falling. Well, that's kind of the way it was when AI first came out. When the big gorilla in the room was AI, people panicked. People panicked. Now, what you have to recognize is back again, quoted data right from the PMI's charts. When Agile hit big, you remember when it hit big? Probably might be 12 years, 15 years ago now. And when it hit big, oh my gosh! Now everything's going to change from predictive to Agile. And oh, everybody's going, oh, now what am I doing? I'm not an Agile person. I don't have any training in Agile. What am I going to do? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to be patient. And what you're going to find is that 12 years from then, they ran the numbers. But when it first came in, 82% of the people wanted to get involved with Agile. 82%. So no wonder they're worried about their jobs. So 82%. Well, now the data, some 12 years later, is 22%. So just like any other new whistle or new toy, we play with it for a while. We take out of it what we think adds value, and then we leave it alone. And so now we've decided you can't use Agile on every project. It's not made for that. It's made for projects that capitalize on that evolutionary approach. And so now all of a sudden, the construction people, for example, they were actually playing around with how do I use Agile on a 22-story construction project? Well, you don't. You might find some areas where you do. And so we now create a new word called hybrid. That's a hybrid. I mean, a little this, a little that. It's not Agile. It's not predictive. It's hybrid. Well, that satisfied a lot of the Agile people. We still got Agile in there, so we're going to be okay with that. And so now we're trying to return to our roots, is what I say. When PMI started in 1969, two of the five people that they're all passed away, unfortunately now, but 2 of the 5 people were construction people. One worked for Brown and Root, Eric Jeanette, and one owned his own construction company, J. Gordon Davis out of Atlanta. Jeanette's out of Houston, Davis out of Atlanta. Well, and then there was a third, Snyder, even though he was a pharmaceutical guy, he lent his support on the project management construction side. Well, they're all gone now. And during the process of evolving from construction-based PMI to agile-based PMI, we forgot about all the construction people. I went through and ran the numbers last week. There's just in Saudi Arabia in the next 4 years, they've authorized $2.5 trillion in construction costs. That's a lot of project management work, and they're looking for good project managers. And that's going to be. They've already been sort of declared the powerhouse of the Middle East, and at the rate they're adding PMP certifications and risk management certification, it won't be long before they'll be leading the world in certification. I think, although I can't get hard numbers, I think right now the U.S. and China are very close in terms of certifications. So, but Saudi Arabia right behind, 3rd or 4th, right behind them, and coming on hard. Well, that's because they've realized you use certain kinds of project management techniques to do certain kinds of projects. And we are actually PMI. I say we, I don't work for PMI, but I've been there so long I act like it. We are reinstituting the construction project professional. In fact, we've already given some. They've created the 4-course curriculum. They've created the exam, and I see them coming across my computer all the time, and people are excited about it. And if we've got that kind of projects out there that need project managers, the future could easily be convert from agile, convert from predictive into more of a construction-oriented approach, and take advantage of AI, the artsy stuff. They can design stuff utilizing the artsy work, and that's what they've done in some of the areas that the people are doing in Saudi Arabia. And so we've got to understand. Well, now that I said all that, now that I've endorsed everything under the sun, let me say this. None of it works without people. None of it works without people. Without people, we don't know what to look for. Without people, we don't know what to ask for. People make decisions. AI doesn't make decisions. People make decisions. And so no matter how sophisticated your AI becomes, you've got to understand at the end of the day, they need you. They need the people that can interpret all of this data that we're producing. It doesn't interpret itself. It gives you areas, it gives you information, but the interpretation comes from people. Never worked on a project that didn't have people. And that's really never going to change. What will change, and I'm excited about it, I'll be honest with you, is that it's going to enable me to do my job as a people much more effectively than I've ever done it before. It's an enhancement. It's an efficiency mechanism. So I got to go buy it. I got to understand it. I got to get trained on it, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, if there aren't people involved, you're going to have 72%, 73%, not in the 80s, like is my objective. I mean, we'd like to have 100%, but obviously that's not going to happen. But if we could get into the 80s, that would the number of millions of dollars that would be saved by moving from 72% failure rate to only 12%, or to only 80% of those projects being done on time, then that's a gap of like 14%. So 14% of the cost would be a cost savings that we didn't have to utilize to finish those projects in a more timely way. Okay, next slide, please. All right, I want to go back to this because I think I made my point, but maybe not. I used to my career went kind of fast because I got aggressive and assertive and took some risks, some big risks from a positional standpoint. One of the big risks in a government environment in Baltimore, Maryland, was helping them understand the concept of risk management. They were throwing away massive amounts of taxpayer dollars, not to mention delivering products way late. That it was obvious something had to be done, and they had people that were experienced. They had people that had gone through the development of these medical diagnostic tools and related equipment. And so what I did with them is I said, look, let's take a good hard look at what risks have been incurred in past projects like this. Remember, if you're doing the first project that's ever been done, it's speculative. It's you're gonna say, well, this could happen. Well, yeah, I mean, an asteroid could hit Earth and kill us all. That could happen. Do we want to include that in our risk management? No, we want to be realistic, but at the same time, like projects have similar risks. And so we can look at past projects, even though they're not the same project, we can look at past projects and identify the risks that occurred. And here's where the mistake that they made, and we finally got it resolved, is that once they'd find a risk, then they just manage the heck out of it. And they just manage it and manage it and manage it. Well, if the risk still occurred, even in a little bit, if it was on the critical path, there's a ripple effect. You've seen these characters on TV with these big domino things, and they hit one little domino and 2,000 dominoes fall down and create a pattern on the floor. Well, that's what could happen to your project. That's what I try to tell them. It's not just that one little risk. You have to broaden your thinking to make sure that you've addressed all of the potential risks. That's why the critical path schedule becomes so important. Things on the critical path don't have float to be able to accommodate slippage that may happen as a result of a risk. So we've got to marry those two concepts. Once we did that, it took them a couple years, to be honest with you, before management really bought in. They kept doing it the old way for a while, but once they bought in, their risk failures went down almost double digits, not quite, but almost double digits, to where they were actually predicting when a risk would occur, and based on the impact it might have, correcting it, doing something to mitigate, avoid, accept, transfer, whatever the case may be. And so I really made a name for the concept of risk management, and a lot more people in the government environment. Now, these particular government environments are medical test evaluation for cancer and a variety of illnesses, and so they were a little bit more technically sophisticated, certainly beyond my realm of understanding. But the fact of the matter was, I understand project management pretty well, and was able to help them reduce those failures. All right, next slide. This is kind of relevant to AI for sure. Just because you know how to say AI doesn't mean you're an expert. You're going to be dealing with, at the rate that we're embracing AI, you're going to be running into these AI people quite a bit. And it was the same way when we started with project management. You see some of the terms I've used here, the critical path, the whirligig, meaning the schedule consistent with the work breakdown, on and on and on. Well, those words have all caught on. And if you don't know what people are saying, I have this happen to me all the time. I've got an investment person I work with, and she was just on the phone today telling me this investment she thought I should get involved in. She took about 20 minutes to explain it. I have no damn idea what she said. No idea. None. But I know she wants my money to invest in, and she's promising big returns. But I said, I'd really like to know how this works. She said, oh, trust me. How many have ever worked with project people that said, trust me? Don't trust them. If the data doesn't say it, it's probably not true. So you've got to make sure that you understand the language that these AI people are talking about so that you can be consistent with what they're saying to you. All right, last slide, and then we'll take some questions here. We've milked this hour about right. All right, this is the one that everybody cares about. I mean, this is the only one that matters. Most of it is, yeah, Lee, but how much money am I going to make? Well, here's the bad news. I don't have salary structure information for AI people. I mean, I can always put my hands on it for engineers, for technicians, and for chemists and that kind of thing, because that's been around a long time. As, by the way, has AI, but just not in the forefront. But now we've got people who, because of their AI expertise, could very well demand significant amounts of salary. The guy I'm working with from Bank of America is one of these guys. Now, he doesn't work for PMI. He's a project manager for Bank of America, but he earns his keep, I guarantee you. And so you've got to understand that listening to a 1-hour workshop by somebody like me should just wet your whistle. There wasn't one thing I said tonight that makes you stand out as an expert in AI. Now, you can pretend to be if you want, but you'll be found out if you're not. I'm always careful. Don't try to act like you're an expert, because you aren't. But I do understand it enough to know that if I were starting my career, now I've been in it 55 years, so I'm not. If I was starting my career at this point in time, I'd be getting real smart with AI real quick, because it's going to be one of the forecasters of the growth of a person's career. So we don't have an AI certification yet at PMI. I don't know that we will. I've not heard any rumors to that extent, but I've been asked that question a long time. Well, is there going to be an AI professional? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised, since it's going to be such an important component of the overall project management landscape. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it's going to be. And if you want to be one of those that are on the front end of the salary structure, you might want to be one of those that are now considered to be very good at capitalizing on AI. AI will increase efficiency. AI will improve effectiveness, and all of that through the idea of managing risk much more effectively. Okay, that's all my questions, or my statements. I'm happy to answer any question. Let me tell you this, because I've been at all 5 of these chapters. I got to remember, and I've also, during the pandemic, did an AI program for LA. So I've covered all of you in one way or the other. And I got to tell you right now, what I tell my live audiences, there is not a single question that you can ask me that I don't have the answer for. Not one. That's how confident I am. And then I follow that with, and oh, by the way, if you're asking the question, you don't know the answer, so you'll probably believe any damn thing I say. So I'll open it up to questions, and I'll try to give you good answers.
Questions? Our Illinois members, LA members, Hawaii, everybody.
Now that's about no questions. No questions a real bad sign for a presenter. And no questions means you either sucked and nobody got anything out of it, or you did it so well that there's no question they could possibly ask. I don't think I did either one of those. And your comments are welcome in the chat. I
Yes.
love getting comments, so don't hesitate to do that as
So
well.
there's a question from Erica from the Phoenix chapter. Is prompt engineering the area to focus on for PMs using AI?
If you plan to use Chat GPT, which I want to warn you, I think there's going to be a tremendous increase in usage of that because I'm even using it. So that's if you're going to do that, the key, of course, to my guy in Bank of America is he says the key is how to write prompts. Now he's one of 5 contributors in a book that PMI's created called Prompt Engineering. So it's available through the PMI organization. And my guy was one of the 5 guys that helped them put it together. So I have at least 1/5 confidence that it's going to be darn good. And that's what you need to do. I'm not good at it yet. I write prompts that come out with too broad-based information. You need to constrain it, get it down to where it focuses in on the kind of information you need. And that's really the prompt engineering.
There's one question from Connie. What's your advice on stakeholders who are wary of applying AI tools in their projects?
That are already what? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last piece.
I guess for stakeholders who are not ready to apply AI tools in their projects.
Sure. That's a good answer. That's a fear factor answer. You have to understand in project management, we have a responsibility to have general knowledge of a lot of things. And you can choose to specialize if you want. But in my view, anyone working in project management right now should get up to speed by taking those 2 classes, by the way. Generative AI and AI data landscape. Those 2 classes are free. One's a 5-hour, one's a 2-hour, I think. They'll get you to where you can decide, should I get any more in depth on this or not? But I think we all have a responsibility to have a general knowledge, just like I had to get a general knowledge of Agile, I had to get a general knowledge of AI. I want to be able to talk, like the slide says, I want to be able to talk to those people who are responsible for AI.
Gotcha. Thank you. One more, maybe 2 more questions. Do you know of any organizations that have fully embraced using AI for projects? Any good success stories yet?
Well, I don't want to say their names because they can't, I'm not sure they have. I've got several that I see because I have 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, I get a lot of stuff. So I get kept up to what the heck's going on quite a bit. And I've had several in the last month claim that they fully implemented AI and that they're using it as their key mechanism to running their projects. I'd have to see it to believe it. I don't think. Now you got to remember AI. When you think back to when the IBM computer beat the chess master, that was AI. All that was AI. That's been around for a long time. But have the people been using it in the organizations? Well, they're now claiming that they are using it. I think part of that is to get some recognition for competitive bids. Oh, this guy's using AI. But I can't confirm that. But I will say there are several.
Any advice for a PM faced with implementing AI that is in an organization that is slow to change?
Yeah, you're going to have the only way you can implement AI in a reasonable amount of time. And I had to do this with earned value, so I know. In a reasonable amount of time is get a real expert. Get someone who really knows what the heck they're doing to lead that charge. And then as they do that, the other players will begin to absorb that information. They'll begin to see how that how that supports what the organization is trying to achieve. So I think you have to, you're never going to be able to buy a book and have somebody use that book as a way to implement AI in their organization.
Let's see. Is there any course or skill that a PM can learn to leverage AI other than the prompt engineering course?
Well, the only thing I've used is for ChatGPT because I'm very focused on specific projects. But if you get a situation where you want to look back into history and confirm risk exposure, confirm risk occurrence, ultimate cost. Like I went back and looked at the big dig in Boston, where they reconstructed all the highway system in Boston. That finished double decades behind schedule and billions of dollars over. So I wanted to find out on future projects, were they able to capitalize on that? And there was no hard, fast record that any project received big benefits from it. So that's one way to do it. But if they don't have the data, here's the problem. Most of our organizations have done a very poor job of collecting and maintaining data, historical data. And if you don't have historical data for your organization, the benefit or value of ChatGPT or PMI's infinity is much less. So what I'm telling all my organizations now, even if you haven't collected all the WBS data from your past projects, you better start doing it now because it's going to pay off big dividends in the future.
Okay, I'm scanning to see if we have any more. Okay, looks like we got most of the questions. Anything else? Then
Stand in mind, I always leave as a standing offer, which is common. If after this thing gets shut down, you go, oh gosh, why didn't I ask him that? Get my email or get me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest. And I'll be happy to answer questions. I don't do anything. I just sit around all day doing nothing. So I'd be happy to have some questions to keep me busy during the day.
Well, I think based on the questions and the turnout, we all appreciate you, Lee. Again, like Lee said, he's very active on LinkedIn. So if you're not connected with him, please go over there and find him. And I will make sure I include his LinkedIn profile on that list so you all can connect with him if you're not already connected.
Yeah, let me make one passing comment and then I'll get off your hair. If anybody's on here on Phoenix, and I just saw one from Phoenix, I'm going to be doing the keynote down at their PDD on October 18th and 19th. So if you're on this, make sure you look me up and chat.
Awesome. Well, we thank you very, very much. This was a great topic, a very relevant topic too. So, and we're over by what, 12 minutes? Thank you for staying and just enjoy your evening. Keep up with all the chapters, register for all of the events that we each have going on. And thank you for coming up today, guys.